Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and baseball season is like coming up on the playoffs, and hockey season's about to start, at least at the time of this recording. And I'm really excited about that. And then you guys were talking about like some foosball game
Right.
earlier. I'm not
Right.
familiar.
College football starts, or it did start last week with a very satisfying Florida State loss, and so there's a lot of really fun stuff happening right now with college football.
Okay, so you like to watch kids play with the pigskin. That's what you like to do.
That's right. That's as opposed to 9 guys standing in a field watching 2 guys play. We like to watch all of them play at the same time.
Oh man, oh man. Well, hey, we've got a really good show. We've got Rob Paul back on the show. It's been a long time since we've heard from him. He's got some updates about his church. I'll call it the miracle of Huffman Baptist, and because God's just really done some amazing stuff there, and I know that our audience will be inspired by it. So, Rob, thank you for being back
Well,
on the show.
thank you for inviting me. And yes, I do like to watch 11 guys, 11 kids playing football, but I also like to watch 9 guys watching 2 guys play. And my Braves are back in the pennant race, and so they're finally learning how to play offense again.
All right. All right. Yeah. Braves got a shot. They got a shot. So my Rays, probably not. We'll just have to wait.
Who won last? Who won the last time? The whole thing. Who won?
You wouldn't know because you
Oh,
don't
okay.
follow it.
Well.
But your wife would know because she's a big Rangers fan.
Let's go Rangers. Let's go.
Hey, let's go church teams. How about that? How about that for a segue?
I like it. It's my favorite team.
Church teams, longtime sponsor, awesome people, great product, great resource for churches. They do everything church software. They do everything church management systems. So if you need help with the basics of like just child check-in, or if you need financial software, or if you need online giving or text systems, they do all of that. They are a one-stop shop for every church size. So you can check them out at est.church. Boyd Pelly and his team have done a phenomenal job of creating a resource that's very practical, that churches will actually use. So it's all of the features you need, none of them you don't. Sometimes some of these software systems can be very bloated with a lot of hard-to-use technology. That is not the case of church teams. It's very simple, it's very easy, it's very practical, and it's just what you need. So go to est.church to get that free offer, 2 months free, and give them a call. I know they'd love to talk to you just about, hey, what they can do. If you're going, hey, I don't know quite even know what I need, that's fine. They can guide you. So go to est.church to get the free offer. Thank you, Boyd. Thank you, church teams. You are helping churches, and we're very grateful of that. You're also a sponsor and the reason that we can do the show. So thank you, church teams.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, give us an update. So let's just kind of paint a picture. You're white, just to clarify. If if somebody's not watching on YouTube, if you're most of our listeners are audio, so I know what the title says. It says white pastor. So Rob is Caucasian, but he was called to a church that's in a black neighborhood, or predominantly black, and transitioning more that direction. And the church needed to be revitalized. Historically, a church that was more Caucasian than black, and a transition has happened. You have led this church in really a phenomenal way. You've become a multi-ethnic church. You've renovated part of your facility. You've grown the church. It really is an amazing success story because, a lot of churches decided just to leave the neighborhood, to just, hey, none of our people are here anymore. The people that are in this neighborhood are not like us, so let's just go to another place and do our thing. That's not what Huffman Baptist did. You took a different approach. You said, let's push through some of these racial issues and let's actually make a difference in our own neighborhood. Really neat story. Definitely one to track. If you don't follow Rob or what's going on at Huffman, you need to. So you can go Google all of that and find them. But Rob, give us an update as to where we are now. Where were you a few years ago? Where are you now? And where do you think you're going to go
Okay.
in the future?
So I was telling somebody earlier today, Sam, you may not remember this, but you interviewed me actually for an article you wrote on this the day that we moved back to I still have boxes behind me when you interviewed me for that. So I appreciate
I
I
remember
appreciate
now.
you and your dad both walking with me along this journey, and I think I made the statement to the church here with my Church Answers membership. I said I will not do this without the ability to pick up the phone and call Tom or Sam, and so the church has agreed to continue to allow that to happen. So I appreciate what you guys have brought to the table. But yeah, so when I got here, um, you know, a legacy church used to run north of 1,500. Uh, our facility is north of 120,000 square feet. Um, and so lots and lots and lots of space. Probably half of our membership lives within a 5 to 10 minute drive of here, so they're in the neighborhood or an adjacent neighborhood. But the other 50% when I got here were driving in from 15 minutes or further. Community 70% non-white, so lots of space. About 15% of our active membership at that time were African Americans, and then COVID hit. And COVID shut everything down, and it really affected us for like 2 years. So we dropped from an average weekend attendance of about 135 down to less than 75 in those two. And for us, it was 2 years. It was 2020 and then following year of 21. It really wasn't until the fall of 21 that we started kind of emerging from all that. So with all of this space, the idea was, okay, how do we, as a predominantly white church, connect with the community that is not predominantly white, and how do we utilize the space that we have for gospel impact? And so at the time, we had an African American church that was meeting on our campus as a church plant. They reimbursed us for use of space. Kind of got awkward because when African Americans showed up for church, it's like, are you here to go there or are you here to be with Huffman? And if you ask the question, then it's like, are you telling me I'm not supposed to be here and I'm supposed to be over there? And it got really awkward. um, and thankfully, God worked all of that out because as of this past Sunday, we had the dedication service for their new facility, which is about 4 miles north of us. So they now have their own building, which meets all of their needs, and they're out from under our shadow, and both churches seem to be flourishing. So that's one change that's happened since our last conversation.
Okay, so I love this. I love this. Somebody shows up on the church campus, and you've got a white church and a black church. And immediately, the people that are trying to gauge where they need to go, it's like, okay, you're black, but do you want to go to the white church or the black church? Or you're white, and do you want to go to the white church or the black church? That's
Really
super
awkward.
awkward. You're
And
right.
and
That
the
is
funny thing is
really
their
awkward.
entrance is on the north side of our facility, and our entrances are on the east and the south side. And they had his picture up on the wall outside the building. And literally one Sunday, the couple comes in and they sit down. I'm walking through and I got my headset on and I go up to introduce myself and I said, I'm Rob, I'm the pastor here. And they looked at me and they said, "You don't look like your picture." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, you're here for Kingdom Family. They actually meet. I can take you there, or you're already here. We're about to start." They said, "Oh, we'll just sit through." Well, they didn't come back. Um, but a lot of people that walked in did come back, and especially after we made a shift in our worship style to be a little more intentional to try to hit everybody in the room with the ability to worship in their heart language. So we have a phenomenal worship leader that checks all those boxes in an incredible way. So we are now, over the last 6 months, uh, we're using a tool that has allowed us to really connect with people in the community through social media. And we have had guests from the community every Sunday for the last 4 months. Our attendance has increased about 10% in that same time period. So we're seeing we've launched three new small groups on Sunday morning. One targeted specifically at adults between the ages of 45 and 65, which most people would say, oh, that's a huge gap. But in our context, it really wasn't that huge. And then that class will probably launch into another one within the next year. But we're just trying to be really intentional with all of that. But in trying to get partners into our building that will do ministry, so that we're using the facility. Last time I was on, we talked about the high school that's here. It's now expanded to a middle school. The year before they came on our campus, they had 80 students. This year they have 160. We share staff, so my executive pastor is also the school administrator for them. So we have that connection. Our family pastor is also their school counselor and director of spiritual formation. And so we have access to the kids in terms of discipleship and that kind of thing. We've baptized 28 students in the last 2 years. Three of those and their families have connected with the church. Our total baptisms in that time, counting forward to this Sunday, will be 36. And this is a church, we hadn't baptized anybody in probably 4 or 5 years before last December, two Decembers ago.
That is a remarkable turnaround. And I just want our listeners to like just let it settle in how strange all of this must have been, because this is your church in many ways was a typical revitalization. Declined, declining attendance, declining budget, dated facility, probably too much facility, definitely too much facility for the congregation that's there. All of the things that most of us experience in a revitalization, but then you add to it this extra layer of complexity that are the racial issues where, you're going to stick in your neighborhood, which I think more churches should do. More churches should be doing what you did. How did you bridge that gap? Particularly the racial issues. What did you do as a white pastor in a black neighborhood to lead the church through revitalization? What's the secret
Well,
sauce?
the neat thing here is that there was a pastor here in the late 90s and 2000, early 2000. Well, he left in 2009, who really led the church to reach the neighborhood. They brought on an African American staff member, and were pretty intentional about reaching the community. Had some success, but not a lot. But there was still an openness there of our people. And then anybody who would have had an issue with the racial issues left the church in one of the waves over the last 15 years. So the people who were left, they know what the community's like. And basically their idea was, it's not going to close on my watch. Because many of them grew up in churches on the other side of the city that have closed. And so they watched the church where they grew up close, and they're like, it's not happening here. And I was just really honest with them on the front end. I said, if I do my job well, then when it's time for me to hand this thing over, I'm going to hand it over to somebody who doesn't look like me, because the church will have completely changed over, and it'll be time for somebody else to take it and run with it. And that's still where we see this going. I don't know if it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but my successor won't look like me. And hopefully there'll be a church here that's vibrant and able to continue to reach the community.
So did you get any pushback from the community being there? Like, what did that look like? Okay, so your church said, we're not dying on my watch. Your church said, do whatever it takes, which is amazing. A lot of people don't get to inherit a situation like that, but yours almost comes from a place of desperation. But what did the black community say about you? Was there any issues there?
We've had a little bit from black pastors that are kind of like, why are you, what are your intentions, kind of a thing. And look, someone who is looking for a truly African American church experience, they're not going to come here. I mean, it's not going to be a fit. They're welcome, but they're probably not going to find what they're looking for. Our musical style is going to be palatable. My preaching is nowhere like a black preacher's. In fact, the pastor who did the sermon for the dedication on Sunday for our church plant that we sent out, I was just sitting there listening. Man, he is a great communicator. I mean, an incredible man of God. I can't preach like that.
Hmm.
So, but from the neighborhood, I mean, there's still some thought from people that we're still the big white church because they see the building and they know that historically where we've been. But the beauty of this is we have tried to find every way we can to get people inside this building. So in addition to the school, which is 99% African American, I think there's one Hispanic student. Um, our neighborhood association meets on our campus, so we'll have 40 to 50 community members, most of them black, some of them white, who meet here the fourth Monday of every month. And that has been a beautiful partnership that really kind of grew out of desperation. We were trying to sell a piece of property. They had final say over rezoning. They said, no, we don't want what you're trying to put there. And we were really frustrated, and there was some anger on both sides. And I finally got to the point the Lord told me, said, you cannot have animosity toward the people that I put you there to reach.
Mhm.
And so we reached out to the neighborhood and said, look, we'll do something different. We ended up selling it to a restaurant, which everybody was happy about because it's a fast food restaurant. There'll be no alcohol or anything like that. It's a family restaurant. Um, and the relationships that we've now built, because bringing them onto our campus has been huge. One of the things that I wanted to do when we renovated our space, I wanted there to be some third space where we could maybe even do once a month where senior adults from the community come and play games, because there's not a senior adult center anywhere in our immediate neighborhood. Well, because of our relationship with the neighborhood and the city government, 3 weeks ago we get a phone call from our city councilor's office asking if we would be open to hosting the Shepherd Center, which is a senior adult center in the community that's one next to us. They lost their building because of mold. They were homeless. They were going to lose their funding if they didn't find a place. And so now, as of last Thursday, we have anywhere from, depending on the day, 25 to 50 senior adults from this part of the city who are coming onto our campus. They have start the day with Bible study, they play games, they eat lunch, they go home. And we have the opportunity to interact with them. They joined us today for our midweek Bible study and lunch. And it was, I mean, we've just tried to figure out any way to get people into the building. And when they do, our people love on them.
Mm. Have you found any? I I am in a similar situation, not exactly the same, but I pastor a predominantly Anglo church in a rapidly changing community. It's not as Anglo as it once was, and I talk to a lot of pastors who are pastoring churches, and the people want to be diverse. The pastors want to lead them towards diversity. Have you found anything that bridges the gap between those sort of on-campus programming and Sunday morning worship service? Is there anything that you have seen that you would point particularly to says this helped people bridge that gap to actually becoming part of our church?
Honestly, we didn't do anything in particular. Our programming is very
Mm-hmm.
streamlined. We do small groups on Sunday morning. We do worship on Sunday morning. We do midweek Bible study and lunch, and that's pretty much it, except for our outreach type ministry. So we do a community food distribution once a month. Like I said, we have the neighborhood, all the relationships. But I think one of the things that helped us is that coming out of COVID, African American churches were very slow to reopen. And when folks started looking to go to church, they were looking to where's a church that the doors are open. And so I think part of
Hmm.
we're also a polling place. So when people come to vote, we don't just open the doors. We're there to greet them. We give them bottles of water, and we get this all the time. We thought y'all were closed. Now we get that less now, but to begin with, we got that a lot. We thought the church was gone. We didn't realize y'all were still here.
So is that what? Because I've had similar thoughts. Is you can't just be a polling place or just be a location for city council meetings or anything like that. Your church actually has to go to this stuff and
Yes.
serve in those settings. Is that what you're finding? That might be the difference between some churches that are like, man, we rent out the facilities constantly, but none of them want to join the church. Well, it's not necessarily just using
Yes.
the
So our
facilities.
our our common statement is we're not in the real estate business, and so if we can't do ministry alongside you, then we don't need you in our building. If the school were not open to us having our Sunday school classes pray for the kids, um, not open to us speaking in chapel once a week, if they were not open to us doing the baptisms, then there's no reason for them to be on our campus. If we can't hand out bottled water and greet our neighbors at the polling place, then there's no reason for them to be here. If we can't do the opening prayer and welcome and spend time with our neighbors at the neighborhood association meeting, there's no reason for them to be here. We also have a
Mm-hmm.
crisis pregnancy center on our campus. So they come through our main door, our receptionists greet them, just being the face of Jesus to people at a really vulnerable moment in their life. So it's been pretty cool to
Mm-hmm.
just kind of see, and all of this has just kind of fallen to us. We didn't go looking for any of it.
That's
If
great.
I'm going to attach a theme to everything that you're saying, um, in my mind, what I'm hearing from you is we became the hub. We're the hub of the neighborhood now. We used our campus, which was too much for the congregation inherited, and because we had this asset, we just utilized it to become the hub of the neighborhood. And I think, don't you
We
use
do.
that term
So
somewhere?
the
Hub?
renovated
Isn't that?
space that's kind of set up like a Starbucks, like a coffee shop, we call that the hub. And the HU is for Huffman and the B is for Bridge. So it's the Huffman Bridge to the neighborhood. And then it's also the hub for us because it's the spot where from there you can access children's building, you can access the elevator for the adult education space. It's kind of centrally located that people can start there and make their way to wherever they're going on Sundays.
So here's something for our listeners. One, it took you years, and it didn't happen right away. Two, there was pain involved and some struggles within your church and some struggles with the neighborhood and the community. And it really took a lot of endurance and creativity and outreach to kind of get to where you are now. So this is the case of every revitalization. Hey, it's going to take a while. Hey, it's going to come through some pain, and hey, it's going to take a lot of work. So that part's pretty normal, but where I think that your story differs quite a bit from others is just how you had to work through a lot of the racial issues. And you said even some black pastors who just had questions. It's like, what are you doing here? Which is understandable. I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense that they're going to come to you and say, "What are your motives? Why are you doing this?" That's just that would be an expectation that I would have. As we kind of close out, what would you say to a pastor that's going to a church to revitalize it and is a mismatch with the community, whatever that may mean? In your case, it's white and black, but it could be any sort of mismatch. It could be age, it could be socioeconomics, it could be racial. What would you say to that pastor who's inheriting a mismatched church?
I think you have to acknowledge it up front. You have to recognize um, we don't need to try to be black as I am who I am. Um,
Hmm.
our view is at some point, I'll either raise up a successor who doesn't look like me, or we will identify a successor and we'll begin to make that transition. But I think the biggest thing is just be who you are, be sensitive to the people who are not like you that you're trying to reach, um, and just love folks. I mean, that's and be honest. I had to be honest with the church. I mean, when I came, I said, look, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And some of you who are excited that I'm coming, in 6 months, you're going to hate my guts because we're going to have to make some decisions that you're not going to like. And I have reminded them of that a few times. Um, you know, I've had to shepherd our white congregation to understand why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, especially in worship styles, um, because it's not about them; it's about the people we're trying to reach. But we also don't want to forget them. And so that actually has been a recent pain point for us. But we've kind of talked through it and prayed through it and worked through it. It seems to be going all right.
Well, I love the story of Huffman Baptist, and I hope that more people tune into what you're doing, what others are doing who are in similar situations. We need more stories like this. We need more stories of churches that turn around when they're mismatched, when they've declined so precipitously, when they have too much facility, and boy, there's so much that can go wrong there, and somehow figure it out. The Lord led you, the Holy Spirit led you, and there were some very creative solutions that came about through your leadership. So if you aren't connected to Rob, you should be connected to Rob. So this is Rob Paul, lead pastor at Huffman Baptist. Rob, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way for somebody to
Probably
follow
the
what
best
you're doing?
way. Link to my personal Facebook page first, and then from there you'll find out. I'll post stuff that'll link to Huffman Baptist, and you'll be able to do that. I would point people to my website. I do some consulting, but my website is down, and GoDaddy can't tell me why it's down, even though I'm paying for it. So we'll get that figured out at some point. But Facebook, I'm at R Paul Jr. on Facebook.
Okay. There you go. So, if this story resonated with you and you're like, you know what, I'm kind of in a similar situation and I could use some help, Rob's actually an excellent consultant and has the experience to back up his recommendations. So, you should definitely reach out to him via Facebook. Would highly encourage you to do that. And we're grateful, Rob, for what you do for the kingdom, and grateful for the stories
Well, thank you.
like Huffman.
Yep. Thank you so much, Rob, for being on the show today. We are also very thankful for church teams, as we mentioned at the beginning, as well as church answers, where you can find other people who are working through similar situations and just get that collective wisdom in there. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week.